Hi, my name is Kim and welcome to my channel where I currently am talking about horror movies from the 50s. So for this week's recap, I thought I would head east and stumbled across a movie called Rodan, which was made in Japan in 1956. Now, as always, this video does contain spoilers. If you don't want this film spoiled for you, I recommend you go watch it and then come back. So the film starts with footage of military and army people. Yeah, it sounds really intelligent, but different militaries testing out atomic bombs, hydrogen bombs, and the like. This seems a little bit random. However, later on in the film, you'll see why they had this footage at the start. So the scene then changes to a small mining village called Kitamatsu. I should also state that I'm probably going to butcher a lot of these names and pronunciations, so apologies in advance. So it's not far from Mount Aso, A-S-O, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly as well, which is on the Japanese island Kyushu, located towards the southwest of the country. I'm laughing because I'm cringing at my pronunciation of things because I just have a feeling I'm getting it dead wrong. We see a group of miners at work. It's just a day like any other when a brawl breaks out between two miners named Yoshi and Goro. So the fight is broken apart. Also, the film is narrated by Shigeru, who is the main character. And he talks about Goro and says how they know each other quite well. In fact, Shigeru is engaged to Goro's sister, Kyo. So anyway, the way that Shigeru is narrating, you can just tell that this isn't their first fight. Yoshi and Goro do not like each other. So Shigeru is the safety engineer of the mine, and he receives a call from one of the miners in Shaft 8, I believe it is. And the miner tells Shigeru that they've had flooding in Shaft 8. So he goes down to investigate. The miners there tell him that Yoshi and Goro were actually deeper within the shaft when the collapse happened, or not the collapse, when the flooding happened, I mean. And they must be on the other side of this big body of water that's now, almost fully blocking the mine shaft. Because of the nature of the flooding, Shigeru, rather than taking all the miners with him, he just takes a couple of volunteers. They start wading through the water, and they're not wading that far until they find poor Yoshi's floating body. They quickly discover that the cause of his death was not drowning, rather it was by several lacerations across his body. Pretty much everyone immediately suspects, and by everyone I mean the miners, the doctors, the authorities who end up being called to the scene, police, etc., what have you. I shouldn't say everyone, but a great deal of these people, they believe that Goro did it because these two people did not like each other, and it's lacerations, not drowning, so it does look like an attack, basically, is what I'm saying. They found Yoshi, they still haven't found Goro. So the search for Goro continues. This time a couple of police officers join the miners in the search. And while down there, they finish wading through the water, only to be attacked and killed by an unknown being that is creating a sort of high-pitched pulsating sound, not unlike the sounds that the ants made in the movie Them. I did a video of that a few weeks ago if you'd like to check it out. Things kind of go from bad to worse for poor Kyo because, as you can imagine, it's a small village, so everybody knows each other. Everybody knows that Goro is Kyo's brother. And so far there are now, I think, 3 or 4 victims, and they still haven't found Goro. So everyone's calling her brother a murderer. They're giving her a hard time as well. So Shigeru goes to comfort her and just to make sure she's okay and that, no one's, breaking down her door to try and attack her or anything like that. All of a sudden, a meganulon, again, another word I'm probably not pronouncing correctly, bursts through Kyo's house. A meganulon is a prehistoric type of dragonfly larvae. I know I had to explain that part slowly. It was just so my brain could remember all those details. So Shigeru and Kyo are like, they run out and grab help and ask for help. Police end up chasing the Mega Nulon. It heads back towards the mine. During the Mega Nulon's escape back to the mine, it kills 2 police officers in the process. Upon examining the police officers' injuries / cause of death, they're both covered with lacerations as well, just like the people who were killed in the mine. So Shigeru believes that, yeah, Goro couldn't have done this. The lacerations, they all match. It must have been this thing that killed the people in the mine as well. Shigeru, along with all the police officers, they head back into the mine. It kind of looks like that this is probably the furthest they've travelled into this shaft. Eventually they come across Goro's body. They see that he's had the same fate as everybody else who was down in the mine shaft. But before they can do anything, they're ambushed by another Mega Nulon. They're trying to shoot it. The bullets don't seem to be super effective. So Shigeru, Indiana Jones style, half rides, half pushes a minecart into the Mega Nulon, killing it. I hate how whenever I try this winged out technique, one eye always looks better than the other, but anyway, we'll just deal with it. After Shigeru kills that Mega Nulon, before they have a chance to celebrate, another Mega Nulon makes an appearance, but just then there's another cave-in, and poor Shigeru is trapped. So some time passes, the scene changes to back on the surface where, you know, they're in the office section of the mining company. But from the way that everyone's talking, it sounds like it's been a few days. Poor Shigeru was still trapped in the mine shaft. The rescue team are saying that it's probably going to take them another day or so before they can finish digging and get to the section where Shigeru is trapped. Just when they're discussing this, there's an earthquake in the area. It's suggested that this earthquake could be suggesting the Mount Arzo could erupt soon. Police drive out towards Mount Arzo where the earthquake happened to assess any damage that may have been caused. They find the road towards the mine has collapsed, and to their surprise, they see a stumbling, confused Shigeru wandering around the rubble. Shigeru appears to be catatonic and also suffering amnesia, because when the doctors are showing him images of the Mega Nulon, he doesn't recognize it and he doesn't seem to have any sort of response to it. Meanwhile, miles away at an airbase, a jet fighter radios in, reporting of a UFO that's traveling at supersonic speeds. Now this fighter pilot, he's actually traveling not far from Mount Arzo. So he decides to pursue this UFO. However, the UFO at an impossible speed turns around, flies towards him, destroying the jet, killing the pilot in the process. This airbase soon received reports of other aerial attacks caused by UFOs, and this is occurring all over the world. So it's suggested that there could not just be one UFO, but 2 causing all this damage. So warnings are issued around the area because, you know, there was an earthquake around Mount Arzo, and there's all this stuff happening, like with the mine shaft. And these reports aren't just shared amongst different air bases, they're shared on the radio so that civilians can know what's happening as well. However, there is a newlywed couple who blatantly ignore these warnings and decide to head to Mount Arzo just for a photo op. And of course, shock horror, what happens is they see this UFO, they scream, there's a fade to black scene, and they drop the camera. So this is reported to the authorities that this couple have gone missing, along with some cattle. However, their camera is retrieved and they are able to develop the film from the camera. In one of the photos, there appears to be a wing. And they're looking at it, they're like, is this the wing of a plane? Is it the wing of a bird? One of the scientists compares it to an image of a pteranodon, and it's very, very similar. Meanwhile, Shigeru is still recovering. Kyo is looking after him, and she shows him She has a couple of pet birds. They've laid eggs, so she goes and shows him. He's looking at the eggs and they start hatching, and all of a sudden he has a flashback of when he's in the mine shaft. He's in a cave of some kind, and there are meganulon everywhere. Like, this place is teeming with them. Sort of towards the back of the cave is this giant egg. All of a sudden the egg starts hatching, and it's what looks like a reptilian bird-like creature bursts out of it and starts feasting on the meganulon. So with this realization, he's like, holy crap, I know what this creature is. It's terrorizing everybody. Goes back to the authorities with what he can remember. The scientist there showing a picture of a pteranodon, and he said, yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I saw. So Shigeru, how is this guy not dead, first of all, after surviving not only a cave in the mine shaft, but also an earthquake in the area? On top of that, he became catatonic and was suffering amnesia. Clearly went through a very traumatic event of witnessing a monster hatch from its egg, and he still decides to lead a team of authorities and scientists back down the mine shaft so they can go exploring this cave, which he almost died in. Anyway, hats off to this guy. He just clearly has balls, to say the least. So he leads the team back down the mine shaft. They find the cave that he was trapped in. At this point, they're still kind of, oh, you know, we need to prove it. We can't just take Shigeru's word. But they find fragments of the eggshell that the beast hatched from. So the scientists take that back to their lab. They analyze it. Yes, it is indeed the egg of what appears to be a pteranodon. So one of the scientists, his name is Dr. Kashiwagi. Again, probably butchering that, so apologies. He was the one who came to the conclusion that's related to the pteranodon. So he calls together a meeting. He talks to the Japanese Self-Defense Force, as well as other members of the military, the authorities, etc. And he refers to this particular species of pteranodon as Rodan. Kashiwagi suggests that the bomb testing may have awoken the creature, hence the footage we had at the start of the film. So after this meeting, the defense force, they start flying around Mount Azo. Shigeru and his, well, not his crew, but what am I trying to say? Shigeru and a bunch of members of the police, they gather near the foot of the mountain, or near the foot of Mount Azo, and they see Rodan, and he flies overhead. They all have to like throw themselves flat onto the ground as he flies overhead, because this creature is so big, it creates these sonic waves just from its wings. So they flatten themselves on the ground as it whooshes overhead. And in that moment, they turn to the other side and look at the other area of the mountain, and they see a second Rodan. They realize that this second Rodan is the mate of the first one. So the jet fighters follow the second Rodan, eventually landing in the middle of a city where it just continues to wreak havoc. And it almost looks like it's enjoying the destruction, because it's just kind of sitting there flapping its wings, knowing that it creates all this destruction to buildings, cars, everything. One of the buildings was the Asahi Beer building, so this time it's personal. I don't know why I said that. It's been personal from the beginning, but I don't know. It's like, don't destroy Asahi Beer. Come on, that's a low blow. So military tanks appear as well and start firing at this Rodan. It doesn't seem to be doing that much. It's certainly not killing the creature. It probably, I don't know, I imagine it probably causes the same amount of pain as maybe like getting shot with a paintball gun. You know, like it probably it hurts like a biatch, but you know, you're not going to die from it, because that's just kind of what's happening. And then eventually, and I kind of laughed at this scene, because the first Rodan flies by, and that's when the second one flies off. It's as if the first one came along and said, okay, honey, that's enough destruction for one day. Time to get back home. Dinner's getting cold, or something to that effect. So everyone realizes that Mount Azo is the home for these creatures. They're like, you know what? Let's wait for them to go back home. Let's fire all of our rockets, weapons, missiles, everything at the base of this mountain, and cause it to cave in, and let's trap these mofos and bury them alive, essentially. Pretty soon, the rumors slash theories that Mount Arzo was going to erupt soon come to a head, and it does erupt because of, probably due to a combination of both the earthquake and the military firing missiles, bombs, rockets at the mountain base. So the two Rodans, in fact, I don't know if the plural of Rodan is Rodans, but we're just going to stick with it because I've said it like 3 times already. So the two Rodans, they attempt to escape. They were inside the mountain, essentially, or it kind of looked like they were inside the mountain. They fly out. You know, the mountain is erupting, and all of this smoke, ash, and lava is just spewing into the air. One of the Rodans succumbs to all the smoke and the ash and the lava, and it falls into a lava stream that was now flowing down the mountain. So it falls into this stream of lava and catches fire and dies. Its mate, who witnesses this, doesn't want to live without it, so it deliberately dives into this flow of lava, ending its own life because it wants to join its mate in death. And that's the end of the film. Like, Shigeru, Kyo, and the rest of the military and the scientists and everyone all watches the two Rodans die in the lava. I watched the English dubbed version of this film. I'll be honest, when I knew that I wanted to watch Rodan, I just grabbed the first copy that I could. I took it and I ran with it, and it was the dubbed version. So maybe I'll get my hands on the Japanese version, and I can check the subtitles and just see if there is a great difference between the Japanese subtitled version versus the English dubbed version. And I'm listening to the voice. I'm listening to the voice acting of the dubbed version, and there was one voice in particular that appeared a few times in the film, and I'm thinking, I know that voice. That is a well-known actor. So I looked it up at George Takei from Star Trek. So I think that's kind of cool. So the movie had mixed reviews. I can understand that in a way. I personally loved it, and I do recommend it if you're a fan of campy horror movies. I will say, you know, I like how they told the story of how there could be one Rodan in existence, but they didn't really explain why there were two. They didn't really explain how the second one came about. They just kind of, they threw in the second Rodan with about 15 minutes of the film left to go, and I felt like they could have explained that a little bit better maybe, but that's just my opinion. What's interesting, and now this next fact I found, well, not just on Wikipedia, I actually found it on a couple of other sites. Apparently Joe Dante wrote an article in a magazine called Famous Monsters. He shared his top 50 list of the worst horror movies ever, and Rodan was on that list, and I was just baffled by that. So for those of you who don't know, Joe Dante directed Gremlins. So Mr. Gremlins himself didn't like Rodan. I just think that's ironic. Like, someone like Joe Dante not liking a campy horror movie. But yeah, I just felt like while Rodan does have its flaws, I don't think it's bad enough to be on a top 50 worst horror movies of all time list. I did read about that on Wikipedia, so take that with a grain of salt. I tried to find a copy of the article in question, couldn't find it. After seeing the movie, I was really curious about how it was made and the behind the scenes side of things. So I actually did come across a video that had stills and behind the scenes photos of them like creating the movie and things like that. So it's a pretty brief video. I'll post it in the description box below if any of you would like to see it. Because I was fascinated by how they made Rodan fly, but you couldn't see any of the strings. I guess that was one thing that they did pretty well, because at least in the version of the film I saw, the quality, yeah, you could not see the strings. This will contrast a little bit to the film I plan on talking about next week, where there is an object suspended by strings that are visible. So without giving too much away, I'm going to be talking about a horror movie where something is on strings. Yeah, I know, I'm giving so much away, aren't I? So yeah, this was my recap of Rodan. Hopefully you enjoyed it. For a movie that's, again, very similar to Creature from the Black Lagoon, it's not a super long movie, but a lot of stuff happens. So I'm sorry if I didn't go into too much depth. I also couldn't find too much about this film, like, because Creature with the Black Lagoon has such a legacy, and I'm surprised that Rodan doesn't seem to have that same legacy. However, a lot of people do reference Godzilla, and I think Rodan does become part of the Godzilla franchise in later years. Yeah, so I just found it interesting that even though Rodan still lives on, it doesn't have that same household name effect, if you will, that Creature from the Black Lagoon has. And a side note, when you look up Rodan, you know, on Google, you know how Google has like the frequently asked questions, and there has little like drop down arrows and stuff, and there are questions like, when was Rodan first made? Is Rodan part of the Godzilla franchise? And then, who is Godzilla's BFF? Apparently that's a frequently asked question. I clicked on this drop down and it said that Rodan is Godzilla's wingman. I'm like, oh, nice play on words there, my friend. Nice dad joke there. Anyway, this outro is 10 times longer than I thought it would be. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know if you've seen the movie or if you think you'll go and see this movie. And I will be talking to you all again next week. Bye.